is our temporary research facility we've been operating out of about, I guess, the last 18 months or so. And come on inside, I'll show you around. This is where we've been testing everything out as far as all of our ideas and designs, making sure we can actually manage stuff while we're moving into shipping container farm designs. So it's a little different square footage, but we have about the same space inside this habitat as we have inside of a 40-foot shipping container. Just arranged a slightly different way. There's not space we have. Just goes out the way here.
So everything in here is going out there in the containers.
Yeah, absolutely. So about to actually do a planting right now if you want to stick around for that.
Yeah.
But the basic walkthrough here is we got our seeds in our workstation, industrial scale. Go through, make sure we got down to the gram exactly how much seed goes for each flat so we get the best yield over the growing period. Then we use Rust Belt Rider soil, or Tilt brand soil as it's known now. We got the new branding apps working great. So
Right on.
that's what we use, and that's actually coming from local hospitals, local schools, and then a lot of restaurants, grocery stores, things like that, that actually, instead of tossing out their waste food, Rust Belt Riders is paid to collect it, turn it into compost by mixing with Davy Tree wood chips, and then they make their own massively fantastic soil blend out of it called Sprout. So we use a mix of Sprout and peat moss at about 50-50. That brings the salt content and pH right in range for all the microbes that we like to do. And that goes into these flats over here. You see we got the liners that go in first.
Yeah.
That allows us to actually remove the entire growing flat. So I can do that pretty much at any stage in its grow. Just to check on things, make sure that there's no issues, but it also allows us to repackage things.
Cool.
Coming around here, I'll show you, we got 3 different styles of display flats that catering companies or restaurants can have full flats delivered in, so that we can actually have a nice looking display for you instead of just a black plastic flat in there.
That's just...
So yeah, after the stuff gets seeded, it comes into the germination area here. And if you want to get in here, that's actually some good looking basil seeds we got germinating. So they actually puff up and turn purple. They start off kind of black and tiny.
Yeah.
And they about quadruple in size, get really, really sticky and stick to absolutely everything. You can see there's a bunch stuck to the surface there. And they turn purple and blue. So we got a lot of basil running right now. That's one of our longest running crops. Takes about 5 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks before we like to harvest it. And we got a client that has placed an order for a lot of it 2 times a week. So it's taking up most of our additional space.
Yeah.
So I think I have everything except for, what is this? We got 2 spots in this tray, 3 spots in this tray. So there's 5 additional spots, maybe a 6th one in the back.
Nice.
We don't use any of the growing space on the workstation because we need that for planting.
Yeah.
I think in total it's something like 86 flats we got going right now. So if you want to run from down here, you can take through all the crops we got. So these are radishes, about 11, 12 days old.
Yeah.
And looking just about perfect for harvest right now. Coming up above them is a combination of kale and red cabbage. I think this is an arugula flat that got snuck in there. But the arugula wasn't liking its placement down below and needed more airflow, so we've been kind of shifting things around, figuring out what they like. Up here is amaranth, and the color is fantastic. Got a little bit of wilting going on over here. But the issue with amaranth is that it's really susceptible to a very particular kind of mold, so it needs lots of airflow, so it got stuck way up high, and it gets hit with the HEPA filter over there, and then that's a dehumidifier on top as well.
Cool.
We got, I think, 3 or 4 dehumidifiers running at any given time, because there's a big fish tank in the back. It's about 300 gallons.
You got fish in it right now?
Yeah, we got about 25 yellow perch going with a native fish that we could restock in any of the ponds around here, or it could be in Lake Erie if you wanted to fish in Lake Erie. So I didn't want to have any like invasive species and stuff. So we still got a little bit of food floating around. They just finished eating.
Right on.
So typically the simplest thing to do after they finish eating is just to get the excess food out. It'll just clog up the works and gunk up everything, start making the water smell awful for the fish.
So I know that you decided to move into the shipping containers, and that will be solar powered.
Yeah, so the shipping containers we're trying to do entirely off the grid,
Yep.
but due to initial budget restraints, we'll see storage back up in here. Due to our initial budget restraints, we basically had to downsize the amount of off-grid capacity, and that's just mainly battery costs.
Yeah.
Like I could have spent my entire budget just on lithium batteries for the for the whole setup,
That's true.
and I still wouldn't have enough to be autonomous for 2 weeks without additional power.
So what do you think of the benefits of that when you actually get moved out of here and into the containers and
The
completely
benefits of
off-grid?
going off grid?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely just like the independence factor, not having to worry about the bill. We're basically taking our costs away from paying utilities to managing our own infrastructure. So there's depreciation value, and there's, you have to learn how to manage those things. You have to find the right contractors and equipment and make sure it's all being maintained properly. But that's just a level of things that I'm willing to worry about in order to make sure that we're operating as effectively as possible to meet our goals. And our main goal here is that we want to be, the kind of term I've come up with and thrown around is called positive impact agriculture. So it's like zero impact isn't quite going far enough because we have already caused a lot of problems. We need to actively reverse those problems while continuing to produce all the things people need. So the main goal for lettuce-free farms and all the things that we're trying to do with shipping container farming and any of our farming systems that will come out in the future, whether it's vertical integration or even just like figuring out how to get the most out of your backyard garden or your front yard garden. We'd be willing to help people with all of that. We want to do it on the most sustainable side, and that's not just zero impact where we're not causing problems. It's positive impact. We're actively, regenerating soil biology. You can create, better disease resistance than pesticides can provide. You can provide better soil nutrients than you can get from chemical fertilizers. And all of this is just by promoting the right biology for your environment, for your micro ecosystem.
Sweet.
And that's all a part of the soil. So that's why we grow everything that we're doing in soil. And then even the aquaponic system and all that, we only use natural and organically approved inputs for that. Actually, I don't actually like to do anything as far as like adding in specific bacteria. I just like to add straight, clear, no fillers, scents, or other additives to ammonia, and just cleaning ammonia. Basically, you can add at the right amount when you're first cycling your aquaponic system without any fish in it. You can get that to basically attract the bacteria that are just living absolutely everywhere. They're omnipresent bacteria, and if you have the right conditions and the right water cycling, and the conditions are basically water, oxygen, it's moving, and you have ammonia added to that system in a consistent ratio.
Yeah.
That ammonia is basically replacing the fish exhaling ammonia, or the ammonia that comes from their waste. So just like we exhale carbon dioxide, they exhale ammonia. So
Yeah.
in a similar way, there's also another chemical you have to worry about in the transition there for aquaponics, which is nitrite. And basically when you have a stable aquaponic system, all the ammonia, all the nitrite is transferred into nitrate. And that is available for plants to absorb, so they can actually use plants to clean the fish tank then, and that's the aquaponic cycle.
Sweet.
So after the microgreens kind of got us started, we were looking at other things that we could do. Basil was kind of the next thing that everybody's asking for and everybody's always looking to use. So this here is an upcoming system that we're going to be having basil planted all the way to the sky. I'm going to get about a dozen more of these pipes made up, and we'll have these outside in the new shipping container system.
Sweet. So, if you're the average Joe, how accessible is doing the same kind of project that you're doing, or below average Joe? Let's say
Oh
that.
yeah, no, any person can set up microgreens. It's really simple. I actually just sent home one of our volunteers with a free kit, 4 flats, all the seeds she needs for a couple weeks. She's got her own soil and all that, but basically she's been offering time, so I'm like, hey, I'll teach you how to grow micros, and I'll send you home with all the stuff you need to do it yourself. She's got her own little greenhouse in the back and wants to do it herself. So
Sweet.
it's not a difficult thing for microgreens. It's one of the reasons we got started into that, because I come from a family background of like landscape architecture and design, engineering and like mechanics and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily farms for food. It's like we're managing gardens, we're making like nice walkways and stuff like that. So when it came to food, I was out of my element. I needed some time to learn, and basically I wanted something that was a little bit faster of a turnover. That could tell me whether or not I messed up faster than like a whole year's seasonal cycle.
Right.
And that's when microgreens, most of them 10 days or 2 weeks, and then if you messed up or not, and you can change and try something else. So
Yeah.
it's about 6 months trying out stuff in my apartment, another 6 months or so trying out stuff in here when we just had aquaponics and didn't really know what the business looked like. And then we shifted everything over, removed the whole aquaponics system and built in these shelves, and just went everything into microgreens and kind of been changing since then.
Nice.
Now, if you want to zoom in on these, this was a fantastic thing. My business partner and building expert, Mark, came up with to level the corners of the shelves.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So we got metal inserts that actually, like, you hammer into a pre-drilled hole in the wood, and then these can go here. And then each of the shelves sits on its own bracket here on the side that you can see so that it can be moved up and down.
Yeah.
So I'm actually planning on scrunching these shelves together, fitting a whole nother level in, and then putting another level on the top of both of these shelves just to expand our growing area, because we have more orders and no space.
Right.
Yeah, and that the new space out there and the shipping container we'll walk through in a bit.
Yeah.
That's going to be able to handle 3 times the volume of this current space, just with better design shelves. It's going to be our Generation 4.
Yeah.
We'll have steel exterior framing. We'll have better waterproofing and lighter individual shelves. The whole thing will be able to be taken apart and moved by one person, just like this is. And this took like 2 people, maybe a third, to help.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you'd be able to take apart and remove all of the growing equipment from the shipping container farm as one human, and then basically power wash the entire inside of it as like a quarantine, this kind of situation where everything got to be clean.
Yeah.
You can do that in a day. And so the main thing with our shipping container farms that we're eventually going to be retailing and selling all over the world, hopefully, is to start off in Ohio and then around the country. We want to be the best work tool for the farmer that buys it. So we found that for some of the other shipping container farms that are out there on the market right now, they're not necessarily designed to be effective work tools day to day.
Yeah.
They were designed by people with good ideas and like amazing amounts of research and investment that went into it.
Right.
But they weren't necessarily using it every single day and then going back to the drawing board and saying, hey, I didn't like this, but I like this.
Yeah.
Hey, we need more space here. Hey, I don't have enough room for my butt. Like, I can't even turn around. I need 6 more inches in this hallway, kind of thing. So there's little things like that, and it's not always about the amount of space, it's about the amount of like resources you have available right there, about how far you got to go to get something else, and like extras you don't need while there's essentials that are missing.
Yeah.
So I've been talking to different owners of different shipping container farms, urban farms, anybody that's working in a small area doing interior farming kind of stuff, and what are the things you like about your workstation? What are the things you don't like?
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time designing what our workstation is going to look like to accommodate really any type of farming that you want to do. And our future growing shelves, with the flexibility you'll be able to have, you could do microgreens, or you could just basically fill the whole bed with the much deeper 2-inch trays. And I've actually grown full heads of lettuce perfectly fine in our sprout in just those 2-inch deep trays.
Sweet.
6 heads per 10-inch by 23-inch tray, I think is what those other deeper ones are. And that's what my plan is. If we, build the exact same thing in the other container,
Yeah.
and we only have to fill half of it with microgreens, the other half's going to go lettuce. You can do a lot of other herbs and stuff like that as well. And then the lighting system is all set up to have that vertical stacking, get you the most growing space per square foot. So these are all 3 stacked. The future is going to be 6 stacked, and those are about as much as we can go because then we're hitting the ceiling. The shipping containers only get so tall.
When do you think you'll be done with the containers?
It's looking like the exterior, main frame, and all that stuff is going to be done in the next 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And then the interior is probably going to take another 2 or 3 weeks after that.
Okay.
But I'm only doing 1 container for growing. The other one is just going to remain empty, and the 20-foot is just basically housing all the electrical equipment. So it acts like a base for all of that.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, so let's take a look out there. All right. Yeah, we just got the lumber order in, Carter Lumber, just did everything for our deck up top. You see we got the 2 40-foot containers, those are high top, 9.5 foot tall. And then those are 1 foot steel extensions that we welded to the top of them.
Okay.
That's gonna be the mounting brackets for all the stringers and joists for the deck. this outer container isn't going to have any deck boards on top. It's just going to have the stringers and joists, and that'll be where you'll mount the solar panels.
Yeah.
So basically, I wanted to cover that entire container with solar panels, but I've had to downsize to like 6.
Yeah.
So it was gonna be like 30. Now it's like 6. Like the budget kept getting smaller, and we had to like, okay, we're gonna need more time for this, and we actually have to spend more on this side. So that was unfortunately where things were getting taken out of. But we're gonna be looking at grant funding and a lot of other options where we can get, you know, we have the whole infrastructure. We have a good plug-in that we didn't expect to get from the building, so I had the power I need.
Yeah.
And then essentially I didn't expect that from this old warehouse. That's why I was trying to go off the grid. And then the other concept is that we could build any one of our urban farming systems as an off the grid version for any of our future customers. And so that you don't have to worry about solar and water and doing all that stuff yourself after it comes on. We have a package that includes that if you're willing to, you know, if you want to pay more and do that like off-grid option.
Right.
And we'll have everything from just solar to doing your own like biogas production for your own natural gas heat in the winter and stuff like that. We're trying to test all that stuff out here.
Cool.
So this mild winter really didn't give me the opportunity to do that. We got started a little later, but next winter comes around. By that time, we'll have our own biodigesters running some of the same food scraps that Rust Belt Riders uses to make their soil.
Yeah.
And we'll be running that to make our own natural gas to basically have that production on site as well.
Sweet.
So we'd be able to basically, if you have a plot of land with sun hitting the dirt, you know, we can build you one of these systems, and it can be fully operational as a year-round farm, no matter where you are.
Nice. So, so you might as well go in for the whole package. Then you're just set to go.
Yeah, and just do
you
the
got
whole
everything.
thing. So,
yep.
Yeah. So right now, as we walk through, you got a little bit careful here. We can walk around.
Where the containers are right now, is this exactly where they're going to be?
Yeah, so I actually took, so the gravel that we're standing on, about 70 yards of gravel, was donated by Dominion Energy. They help out Ingenuity Fest every year.
Yeah.
And they were willing to help me out as well. So I got that donated, and then I spent a couple days out here, not with a laser level, but laying on the ground with these stakes and holding a level and eyeballing this thing.
Yeah.
But when we went around, actually, the contractor and I checked all of these containers are almost exactly pitched the right way. So you want them all pitched to one corner.
Yeah.
About 4 inches to 6 inches over the entire length of the container, 40 feet, and about 2 inches over the 4 foot.
Yeah.
And so that basically puts your bubble on your level, like just like a quarter of the bubbles over the line. And every one of them looked just right everywhere we put that level at.
That's
so
level.
I spent a couple days out here in that one like week we had snow with a shovel, feeling a little bit miserable about my life, but making it happen. And they all sound pretty good. The one we do have to shift is this guy after remeasuring things 5 inches out of square on that end and 1 inch too close on this end.
Right.
So it's got to do a little bit of a pivot. And I had to buy some big chain and some chain binders. We'll have to get the skid steer over here and make all that happen.
Yeah.
But that'll basically be the next step before we get all the deck stringers and all that tied up together.
Right.
Because up top here is an 8-foot wide surface. We're actually bringing the deck 2 foot over, so it'll be a 10-foot by 52-foot deck.
Yeah.
It starts 4 foot back from the 40-foot container, extends over that 8-foot gap between the containers and to the end of the 20-foot. And then the whole 20-foot will be covered in a deck too. The stairs will go up the side of it.
Man, that's gonna be sweet.
It's gonna be crazy. It's 600 square feet. It's like a tiny house worth of upstairs deck. That'll have some of the best light in here.
Yeah.
Down here where we're standing will be the other main growing area. I'm gonna build in this massive raised bed about 6 feet, 7 feet, 3 feet tall. That'll run the full length of the container.
Yeah.
Got the soil from Rust Belt Riders for that, all ready to go. And that's essentially going to be our main growing area, and we're going to have those vertical pipes you saw from Basil.
Yeah.
That's going to be like sticking up out of those.
Cool.
And testing different growing combinations for, you know, sisterhood plantings or just monoculture plantings. But you have like this pipe's all basil, then this pipe's you know, all marigolds, and kind of like balancing things like that. And the next one's all tomatoes, and those go together really well. We've got 11 foot about to the top of the deck, and then we're gonna have a hoop house that sits over the whole thing as the roof, essentially.
Nice.
So the edge of the hoop house sits to the inside here.
Yeah.
So we'll have a little bit of insulation on the top, and then we'll bring in a layer of plastic just to keep that air gap.
Yeah.
As part of our insulation. And then the hoop house will extend all the way to the back of the deck. on the other side. So roughly about here is that like would be the middle of that 24-foot wide hoop house.
Yeah.
And we'll have about 23 feet to the peak. So with this line, we'll be able to get tomatoes trellised all up the back side of this container because this is our south side.
So we were talking about, these are basically the same size containers I was needing for my project.
Yeah, I love to look at your project too, but you were getting a little more involved with the earth chip walls with the tires and stuff. I love the thermal mass.
Yeah, some thermal mass in it.
I love that.
But your containers they're not brand new, are they? Huh?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
These guys are beat to hell.
So if you were to do this,
holes that have been like welded to be filled in, and some of them got dented.
Yeah.
Just to get the wall straight inside, the contractor had to bang the crap out of the side with a sledgehammer. So, I mean, yeah, they had a little bit of wear and tear on them.
so what do you think the cost would be, or at least a roundabout cost would be, if you were doing this with all conventional stuff, all conventional construction instead of using the containers?
Oh, all conventional construction?
Yeah.
Just to frame out and make like sturdy this kind of like space for these 3 containers, they cost me a little under $4,500 for everything, basically.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it would take double that, if not more,
Right.
just in the lumber cost, and that's not even the labor cost.
Right.
But that's like $4,500 got these things delivered. Another $1,500 got them put by crane on site. Like,
Yeah.
there's these like extra costs don't even add up to doubling, and then adding labor, and then adding finishing, and then adding waterproofing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's all those things that you just get from. Yeah, this is a wind and water tight container. That's like the grade they sell it at.
Yeah. Man.
Let's head inside and check it out. You guys are coming to invade your space. What's that? We're coming to invade your space. Got a future YouTube video coming in. Oh, okay. This is our contractor. He's been kicking ass and taking names.
Hey, fellas.
Making this thing happen. So yeah, we got 2-inch insulation on the floors. I have good exposure. So you can see we got 2x6 on the bottom for our main basement. Set above the floor, so the floor went all the way to the edge and got insulation all the way to the edge. And then 32-inch spacing so that these insulation panels can slap right in.
Nice.
And these are the boards run all the way along with those bolts come to the other side. Basically filled in the gaps with spray foam, and then 4-inch insulation on the top.
Cool.
So we're getting the thin ply on the top of that, and then I'm kind of upgrading everything as far as what we're getting waterproof paint and epoxy surface on everything, so you can power wash the whole inside, like I was saying. So basically, everything got upgraded. The floor is getting roof sealant, and the walls and ceiling are getting floor sealant. But yeah, that'll give us insulated, watertight, amazing area that we'll be able to use for year-round growing. This will be entirely encased within the heated space of the larger hoop house and deck area.
Yeah.
So we're only using a heat pump here because it's never going to get freezing in the air it's cooling from. So heat pumps are basically able to do heat and AC with a single unit, but they're not effective if you're going to get below freezing.
Right.
So the fact that its intake is going to be in this open space, it's all going to be heated, covered by the deck and all that, we don't have to worry about a thing.
Nice.
So yeah.
Cool.
This will be a good steel door. We'll be able to lock everything up and have it all secure. All the container doors still actually shut and go, so you actually have the same security. There's no holes or anything that cut in the container.
Right on.
The only thing we're going to have to do is take a small, I think like a 2-inch hole through the door to run the line for the coolants of the heat pump, basically. So there'll be a door right here. This will all get framed in, the plastic will come down, and this will be like one entrance to be able to come from this main growing area for micros, and the main growing area for tomatoes, basil, and herbs.
Right.
And then, you know, back into the main growing area for whatever we expand into. This will be kind of like our meeting area and entryway. And then, you know, I might have office space up there. I might have storage space up there. It might just be more growing space. I feel like given enough time, every square inch of this place will be covered in plants that we're selling. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's going to be a fun journey. It's just going to take a little longer than I hoped it would. But at the end of the day, I'm excited to see what we get.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really enthused that you're doing this as something that's commercial as opposed to, and there's nothing wrong with it. Everybody should eventually look into getting residential off-grid stuff,
yeah.
but you don't see a whole lot of people doing this commercially for their business.
Yeah, businesses don't like to rely on it yet, and that's basically just because of precedent. Businesses like to rely on what's been done in the past.
Yeah.
And it's only been recent years that you've been able to actually rely on solar as a cheaper source of electricity input than you would like your other standard production sources. Now that's typically on a massive industrial scale, but it's getting so cheap on a massive industrial scale, it's starting to actually make sense on a smaller corporate scale, or
right.
a smaller individual business, small business scale. So to that end, the main cost when it comes to going off grid is batteries. Now, as far as battery technology, I did a lot of research. Flow batteries are my favorite thing ever invented.
Right.
They literally have a little pump that is moving, and I don't know if it's electrolyte or some kind of solution. It's a chemical solution that literally flows as a liquid over a physical film, and if you're putting energy into it, I believe it hardens that liquid into a solid on the surface of that film as a storage capacity in a chemical process.
Yeah.
And then you run the pump in reverse and basically wash that off to pull electricity out. So I'm not exactly sure all the chemistry of how it's working, but I know it's impossible for them to really degrade their charge over time.
Mm-hmm.
You leave it 50% charged for 6 months to 6 years, it's 50% charged.
Yeah.
It's like a physical thing that has to have a chemical reaction in order to change.
Yeah.
If that pump's not running, it's not changing. So flow batteries for me are like the end-all be-all. They weigh a ton.
Yeah.
But when it comes to doing anything commercial or house size, that's the only battery that makes sense for any kind of long-term, stable, reliable use. So I'm always trying to move towards the better technology, but it just doesn't always make sense cost-wise. So like flow batteries way out of my cost point right now, and lithium-ion are way out right now if you buy new or anything like that's even like purpose-built for a home system.
Right.
Goal Zero has some things, and they have like the whole system. They're plug and play, ready to go, and like yay. But it's not cost effective when you're actually trying to compare it to just like paying an electric bill. So it's definitely doable for any major house or tiny house especially.
Yeah.
And small businesses need to start looking at it too, because it's definitely an option.
Definitely.
And then you're not paying electricity bills. You're managing your own infrastructure.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a cost associated. It's about whether you're the one taking care of it or you're trusting that to somebody else.
Yeah.
And most of the time we're finding that when it comes to bigger utilities, or when it comes to, the biggest companies that are out there, they're so big, they don't care what they charge you for.
Right.
But you care what they charge you for.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be the one managing that, then you know exactly where your costs are coming in. You know what that looks like. It might cost you more over the same amount of time, but you know why. And you're not worried about somebody else messing up and taking out your power.
Right.
Or your water or your gas.
Right.
So that's where I'm trying to get to that independent site where we can basically be the utility provider for our own farms, and then offer that as an additional buy-on option for anybody that we're selling our farms to that we're not operating.
Yeah.
Yeah, our main goal for Letistry is to operate, around the Cleveland area, do maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 of these guys around the region.
Yeah.
And just keep the local sales and use that as a model to prove how like these can be more profitable than this farming system that you were otherwise going to implement. Or if you just did a hoop house and you were going to do this, you would actually be making this much for your margins, where you could bump that up to this.